continuing in the vein of inspecting games and importing battle mechs. I'm mucking around with MechWarrior 5. It's taken a little bit to get here, but it's been an interesting journey to say the least. So in this case, because I've bought the game, I went to the Epic Store, downloaded the MW5 Mercs Editor, which allows me to create mods, so I could get access to the Unity files and the all the textures and all the bits inside it. And you can see the headless fire starter stomping across the terrain here. So let's get on with this. Now that we've got everything installed, we're looking at actually extracting a mech. Nice and simple. So I'm going to pick on the classic Irby because everybody loves it for some stupid reason. And inside the model, in the body, we have the skeleton, and we also have to hunt around for the cockpit. So in this case, DM0, which I assume is there for the low damage level. So I'm going to select both of these, right click, and I'm going to do a bulk export. Once it catches up to reality, waiting, still waiting. Yep. Asset actions, bulk export. We need to dump it somewhere. I've previously tested with this Firestar, so Irby. Dump it all in there and it'll extract everything as FBX. I've switched this to the 2020 version. Don't know why, I just did. And go OK and export all. That's now done. Next up we need to get the textures. So going 2 levels deep inside the materials textures, we've got this whole list. So Control A to select all. And then right click and it'll take a little bit to do this. And then again another bulk export. Alright, so again, asset actions, bulk export, dump it in the same folder, it'll sort itself out and I'll show you how to tidy it up in a minute. So just while this is finishing off, all these textures cover everything that you can think for different camo patterns, let's say camo patterns. The colours are really vibrant, there's a fix for that I've got, but moving right along, let's jump back to the urban mech level. This time through, I'm going to get the MDAs. Now this is export. I just going to dump that one there. Now see if I can get the other 3. These are the weapon loadouts for the various mechs. Bulk export. I just want to dump it in that folder. It will do its thing. They're very tiny. They're just text files. If you double click on it, and I'll bring the asset view in so you can see it. So it's got, which materials get used, some stats, all sorts of other stuff about it. Available hard points that are used. So you can see where things are loaded up, and this BH1 and EH1 gives you a clue to where the weapons are actually stashed. And if I remember, yeah, anyhow. So moving over to animations, here we can see there's a whole bucket load. I'm not completely certain over which ones we actually need, so but oh yeah, what I said about the Irby, this copy, if you just open up with Notepad++, it gives you a giant whopping great big text file, as you can see, all these stats on the mech, which is, yeah, complicated. So I needed that for something else. Alright, now animations. Now by default, for some bizarre reason, if I double click on the blueprint, I'm not going to get anything worthwhile because it's the blueprint, ABP. But if we double click on one of the animations, so you can see here, blueprint, can't edit it, hide that for a second, get back to here. It automatically defaults to the Crusader miniature mech. So in this list here, it's all playing its thing. I'm going to stop that because it annoys me. I've got UM. This is the last of the urban mech ones. I'm going to scroll up until I stop seeing UM. And there we are. Click that one. So shift click that to select all of them. And I'm going to change from the Crusader. Scroll to the bottom of my list to find the urban mech. There we are. And then apply to all. And all this really does is just updates to the correct mesh so that when you export it, it doesn't cause chaos. So right clicking on this, I can then export as FBX, and it gives me a location. I go yes and all. It'll and then it runs through its thing. Yeah, it's still trying to cache stuff. I'll ignore that for the moment. So, go to my desktop, there's the Irby. It's dumped all the animation files straight in the middle of the mess here. So I'm just going to create an animation directory. Select all, then control click that one and that one. Then I can drag that into there. And done. Alright. So, let's see, control enter. Open up the object file. So I want to copy all the stuff in here into here, but I need a few layers deep. So once I'm into the body, that's the two parts that I need to bring over for the actual mesh, and then inside the textures I've got all the textures, so I'm just going to bring the entire textures folder here. It just makes it a little easier to work with when you're actually bringing stuff into Blender. Now that should cover everything. I don't think I've got anything. Oh no, the MDAs. So that's just the breakdown of what's in the various mechs, and I'll just drag that one over here as well. Nothing else is needed, so I can actually delete that entire game folder. Get rid of that. Alright, so that's everything we need out of Unreal. I'm going to close this and then I'll migrate over to Blender to do the next part. Now switching over to Blender. I've got my FBXs, but I need to import them. Now by default, the import, oh this is a mess, FBX should be available. And of course we just browse to where it is, so I'll just paste that in there. And here I'm just going to grab the full Mech Skeleton import. There is the little guy in all his glory, without much of a cockpit, but we can fix that. So that's the first bit we'll do, is we'll import the cockpit part, which is why I grabbed it. I did experiment with all the other forms of stuff there, but it just didn't do me much. Anyhow, let's bring out this side panel here. We're going to select the cockpit. I need to lock it onto that position. Now, I could eyeball it, but luckily we have this rig here, and this bone just in there is the same place as the cockpit. I assume the cockpit is meant to actually be rigged to that one, so we'll see what happens. Now I need to go into edit mode. Click on this particular bone here, shift and move, so that one just there, highlighted. Shift S to snap it to that point. I can then go back to object mode and then select my cockpit and shift S again to snap the selection to the cursor. It's not quite done yet, but it's getting closer. We just need to rotate it, so we can use the rotation tool here to grab it and spin it around, or I can just go rotate, after rotate Z for the Z direction, and then 90 degrees, and I'll do the minus symbol, just flip it round. Clicking off that one, you can see how the Irby is done. Now for some reason, because it's only got one set of materials, this appears to have worked. This is confused about its materials, mainly because there's so many of them. So switching over to the shading tab, I'm going to ignore the helmet for a moment. I'm just going to stick to the mech itself. We want to add a pattern to it. Now it comes with this default shading setup anyway, but what I want to do is I want to basically throw in a shader that I've prepared, and I'm going to append this, and I'm going to look at the node tree, and I'm just going to grab those two. You can see MechWarrior shader, it's kind of obvious really. So then I'm going to add both in, so group MechWarrior shader. I kind of probably don't need to add in the separate RGB, but I'll show you what it is anyway, because this piece is actually inside this one. So if I hit tab, you can see I've basically got a base image that plugs into this color separator, and then some 3 colors to plug into there, and then some mapping stuff going on. If we look at this one, which is found on somewhere, I'll have to put a link in the description. It's basically gets the original image, separates into the red, green and blue channels, and then subtracts those away from the tweak color you put in, and it mixes them all in with the what colors you want in those alternate channels. What does all this mean? Well, let me show you. So this is one that I've pre-built, so I'm going to get rid of that. Drop this in here and plug her in. Going to grab the normal and plug that into the normal here. Now I need to add in some images. So going to where I extracted all those files, you can see that huge long list here. Of this whole long list, we need an image for the body. And if you look at this whole list, if it's EMS, it's an emission material. This is great because we can plug that straight into our little emission color slot here. And I'm going to bump that thing up to 20 so it's nice and bright. The rest of the colors are glitching out at the moment because I haven't fixed them, but moving right along. We have NRM. This is usually a normal map from what I've noticed, so I'm going to plug that into there. This will give the surface bumps and groove lines that you'll see on the mech. So it's starting to come together. Now let's go. Yeah, as Big Red loves purple bird. I'm going to plug that into there. This gives the color combinations of the glorious purple bird empire. So we must go purple, purple, and blue, and what else do we want to give them? Big yellow? Yeah, well maybe. Hot pink, hot rod, something like that. Anyhow, you can get the idea. Now if we don't like that particular texture, we can always drop in another one. Usually what I end up doing is I just grab the default one. So whatever it is, default, bang, done. So I can then plug that straight into there. Allows me to tweak the color. Whoops. Control Shift, Control Z and Z to undo it, get rid of that stuff. So this is coming along quite nicely. The only hassle, of course, is that I would like to be able to see it first up. Well, I want to try and get this bit to match that bit. It's not quite joining. No, it's a bit of a surprise because normally it does. Maybe the bit I selected was just that little bit too high. All right, well, grab Z direction, slide it down a little bit. There, that works-ish. All right, so back to this original material. Let's see. Oh yeah, we need the wear stuff. So this is another image. If I look through this list, we have wear down the bottom here. And plug it in. That should give damage lines along the edges instead of scrape and rubbing. I'm just experimenting with this texture set, trying to get it working the way I want, so it's, as I said, a work in progress. Now what you'll notice here is this original default mask. If we zoom out here, you can see how certain bits are shaded certain colours, and of course I'm replacing those colours with those ones there. And then of course finally I should mention with the normal map, because this is a normal map, I need to switch it from RGB into non-colour. And usually this target space should be diffuse UV. Alright, so that one's done. I should give this a name. Let's see. The big image that I used was the default. So let's go with that. Copy or paste. Alright, now because I've done that one, I can then go to my OverMech and change this gridded world material to body default. And for some reason it's showing up in there. Okay, well let's just switch the other one over. And maybe that one should actually be the world default material and I should change it to a glass. Anyhow, I'm now stuffing around with this sort of stuff. So that bit's done. I should save this little bugger, not as part of the fire starter, but as part of the Irby set. Alright, and the last bit I need to deal with is the animations. So going back to this layout setup, actually no, animation tab, I want to bring in these animations again. So this little guy, I'm going to slide out of the way. Oh, actually I should attach that cockpit to the mech. It's probably going to stuff up before like last time, but that's okay. I don't care at this point. As it's still work in progress. Alright, so grabbing this, I've got the little marker at the center, which is everything's attached to this. Grab Y direction 10. Alright, I'm just going to have them sitting there. Now I'm going to import the first of the various animations. So the FBX animation, look at my animation folder. I've got this whole long list of things to choose from. Excuse the bike outside. Let's just run. Yes, this will be hilariously funny. An urban mech running fast. Make sure you tick the animation box. All of it should be the default. It will do something weird once we associate it. Anyhow, this is the unattached rig, which is that one. I want to attach it and replace this. So this rig, same size as that rig, and if I play it, you can see it running as a thing. So very exciting. Going to cut down the animation just to 60 frames because most of these do 60 frames. Oh, its run cycle is actually a short one. I'm surprised it can move so far. Anyhow, I'm distracting myself. Go to the action editor in here, and I'm going to give this the name. Now, what was the thing? Oh, this was a something walk something or other. No, not that one. And again, I'm just going to cheat. I'm going to cut and paste the thing. I'll use a running forward in a straight line. Copy. Go into here. All paste. Done. All right. So that's the run cycle. Not quite done yet. I need to go over to here, and then I'm going to switch this one to that run cycle. Everything vanishes. Oh my god, it's a catastrophe. No, not really. But I'm going back to this very top level here because this, for some reason, is set to centimeters. Restoring the scale to 1, we get our mech back, and Irby can run. Or at least try to run so far. I'm going to drop that frame count to 40. And then when we hit play, we have most of it. You'll notice that the cockpit is bouncing up and down like a mad thing. It's one of the few things, one of the things I haven't worked out yet, but you get the idea of the process. Yeah, slightly disconcerting, but anyhow, I'm done. I'm going to stop my animation. I'm going to save this little blighter. Final thing that I forgot to mention with this sort of stuff is that you can actually load up multiple actions for your mech, get them to do particular things, depending on what you want. Again, I'm having cockpit problems over here. I found that I can't import the inverse kinematic parts of the rig for some reason, so I'm going to have to try and find a workaround to deal with that one. But, you know, that's all I've got time for on this one. Enjoy playing around with this stuff. As always, all the assets used here are actually owned, I suppose, owned by their respective copyright holders and such forth. I'm using this for experimental purposes and to sort of get my head around rigging and animation. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and until next time.